What is up, everybody? It's JT Sports Match, you guys, with another episode of JT Sports Live. On this episode, we're going to be recapping the Pittsburgh Steelers' loss to the Buffalo Bills. We're going to be talking about Jalen Hurts' performance against the New Orleans Saints. Are the Buccaneers still Super Bowl contenders? Daniel Jones, and will the Miami Dolphins make it to the playoffs? So before we get into tonight's show, make sure that if you guys haven't already, that you guys go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We upload college football videos and NFL videos daily. Also, make sure that you follow me on all my social media platforms. My Twitter and my Instagram is both JT Sports _. The link to those are down in the description down below. So let's start off first by recapping the Buffalo Bills' impressive win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. And first of all, I want to talk about Josh Allen real quick. What the hell are they feeding these kids nowadays? Because Jesus freaking Christ, man. Oh my God. So the play of the game to me is third down and I forgot what it was. Josh Allen's getting chased by almost the whole entire Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line. This dude is falling, does a fadeaway throw towards the sideline. No, it's basically he's falling. He's about to run out of bounds. He's running towards the sideline. He throws the ball across his body, down the freaking field, and there it is. It was to one of his tight ends. I forgot who it was. I think it was Knox or who it was, and it was a pass interference call on Mike Hilton. Oh my God. That's when I realized that the Buffalo Bills were going to win the game. Then you had the interception by Big Ben when he was trying to hit James Washington down the field that got picked off by Levi Wallace. And that pretty much sealed the game there. So that was a really impressive game for Buffalo. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is the second straight game in a row that they have lost. Okay? So the Steelers are now 11-2. And the Steelers had a lot of success early on. Remind you, this is a Steelers team that blew out the Cleveland Browns earlier on this season. They beat Tennessee. They beat the Ravens. And now the Steelers now are starting to lose some momentum. Well, I'm not even going to say some momentum. The Steelers are losing a lot of momentum right now. You have a lot of guys that are injured. So next week, you get to play the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, that's a game that the Pittsburgh Steelers have no business losing at all. Okay, so the Steelers get to hit the reset button. They get to play a Cincinnati Bengals team that they should beat. And you get a chance to refresh before you get to face the Indianapolis Colts and the Cleveland Browns. Now, the thing that I noticed about the Pittsburgh Steelers is that the Steelers are not the only flawed football team right now. The Kansas City Chiefs are flawed too. Remind you that the Kansas City Chiefs have played in 2 straight close games in a row. They almost lost to Denver on Sunday night. And the Miami Dolphins nearly were able to complete the comeback. So the Kansas City Chiefs, people try to make it seem like the Kansas City Chiefs are just this imperfect team and they can't do anything wrong. The Chiefs have their flaws too, just like Pittsburgh. But the difference between the Steelers and the Chiefs is that the Chiefs aren't on a 2-game losing streak right now. And the Steelers are. So I know there are going to be a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers fans out there and a lot of people saying that the Steelers should fire offensive coordinator Randy Fichtner. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Randy Fichtner is not going to anybody. Remember, Ben Roethlisberger handpicked Randy Fichtner. Remember, Ben Roethlisberger did not get along with former Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator Todd Haley. So Randy Fichtner is the guy who Big Ben likes, and he's not going anywhere. If Big Ben likes you, you're not going anywhere. So the Steelers are stuck with Randy Fichtner. And the play calling was not all that great this game. But I mean, the Steelers really couldn't do anything in the second half because the Buffalo Bills were blitzing the Pittsburgh Steelers to death. And remind you that the Steelers are basically on their last thread when it comes to the offensive line. This offensive line is absolutely banged up. The backup offensive line that they had got injured. So now they're heading on to a thread by their offensive line. So really, the Steelers, even if they wanted to take shots deep, the only way they could take shots deep is if somebody got beat off the line of scrimmage. So for Big Ben and the Steelers offense, you get the refresh and reset against the Cincinnati Bengals next week. That is a game that the Steelers are going to win. You're going to be 12-2, most likely, hopefully. And you're still going to be 1 game back of the Kansas City Chiefs for that number 1 seed. And let's be honest, The Pittsburgh Steelers need that number 1 seed more than any other team in the NFL because this is a team that is really bruised. They're battered. They're gassed. Remind you, the Steelers haven't had a bye week since week 4 when that game against Tennessee got postponed. So they've been going at it for a very long time. So for the Steelers, they need that bye week more than anybody. And for right now, this is kind of desperation mode if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, now in terms of desperation mode, like, it's not desperation mode in terms of, you need to win the rest of their games to make it to the playoffs. The Steelers already have their playoff spot cemented. Regardless if the Steelers lose the rest of their games, they're going to the playoffs regardless. But this is desperation mode because no team in the NFL, or at least in terms of the AFC, needs that first round bye more than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Your offensive line is hanging on by a thread. Your backup offensive lineman got injured. Okay, Kevin Dotson, who is the rookie out of the University of Louisiana, he got injured. So you're on your third string offensive line. Your linebackers are injured. You're on your third string linebackers. Like, this is a Pittsburgh Steelers team that right now is hanging on by a thread. When I say hanging on by a thread, I'm not saying that metaphorically. I really mean that. You're down to almost your third string everything. You're down to backup corners, third string linebackers, third string offensive linemen in. The Steelers desperately need that first round bye more than any other team in the AFC. And Mike Tomlin realizes that this is desperation mode right now. Now, for all of you guys that are saying that the Cleveland Browns are going to win the division, listen. If the Pittsburgh Steelers win next week, they're going to be 12-2. Therefore, if they do win the remainder of their games, they'll be 14-2. And the only way that the Steelers don't get the AFC North title is if the Cleveland Browns beat Pittsburgh. And that's if. And even then, the Browns still have to play the Giants. They still have to play the Ravens this Monday night. The Browns, even if they do beat Pittsburgh, still may not win the AFC North because they may lose one of those games or slip up. So for the Steelers right now, you're hanging on to the division by a thread, even though you're still up by a couple of games. And your whole team is banged up. Now, let's talk about Buffalo because we've been talking about the Steelers for the last couple of minutes. We're going to get back to Pittsburgh. But for Buffalo struggled early on with Pittsburgh up front. And his coaching staff, Sean McDermott and his staff, once again showed why they are one of the best coaching staffs in the NFL. First quarter, second quarter, Cam Hayward was having his way with whoever was, matched up against Cam Hayward. Second half comes around, the Buffalo Bills make some great adjustments, and the Steelers' pass rush was pretty much, extinct. So for the Buffalo Bills, man, this is a team that right now, if you had to play the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs, I wouldn't want to play Buffalo. I'm going to be honest with you. I would not want to play the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs right now because this is a scary team right now. Josh Allen deserves to be in the MVP conversation. This defense played really good against Pittsburgh. I mean, listen, I think that the Buffalo Bills, you have to put them in discussion as a dark horse Super Bowl team. Now, of course, if you were to ask somebody which team in the AFC has the best chance to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't know if you would say Buffalo. Okay, because remind you that the last time Buffalo played Kansas City, they got destroyed. And when you get blown out that way, that just isn't just a one-game occurrence. The majority of the times, if you lose by a blowout fashion, that just means that team is just better than you, not from a coaching standpoint, but from a time perspective as well. And remember, for all you Buffalo Bills fans, because I know there's a lot of you guys watching saying that was just one game, and we play Kansas City again, it wouldn't be a blowout. Well, remember, Green Bay Packers fans were saying that last year when they got blown out by the 49ers on Sunday Night Football. Okay, and what happened again? They got blown out in the NFC Championship game by the 49ers. So for the Buffalo Bills to beat Kansas City in a rematch, they would have to overhaul a lot of things. The coaches would have to make a great game plan. There would have to be a lot of adjustments to be made. But for right now, if you were to ask somebody who in the AFC has the best shot to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, it would either be the Steelers or the Buffalo Bills. It just comes down to which team do you trust more. Do you trust Pittsburgh? You know Pittsburgh has just as good as a team as Kansas City has, but Buffalo's the hotter team right now. And if you were to ask me personally, I think the Buffalo Bills have a better shot at beating Kansas City than the Steelers do right now because around this time in the NFL, it's about momentum. It isn't about who's the better team, who has a better coaching staff. The team that gets hot in the month of December is the team that does the most damage in the playoffs. You remember Tennessee last year, right? Baltimore was 13-3. They dominated pretty much every single body. Well, not 13-3. They were like 14-2. I forgot what they were. But regardless, the Ravens were the most dominant team in the NFL last year. They were basically blowing everybody out. And that's why I tell people, point differential in the regular season doesn't matter come playoff time, because the Ravens blew out basically everybody they played last year and got smacked in the divisional round by the Tennessee Titans. So it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season come playoff time. What you do in the regular season once the playoffs start has nothing to do for the playoffs. Basically, the playoffs is basically a new season. Nobody cares what you did in the regular season. It's the playoff time. You know, you're in the playoffs. Now it's all about what you're going to do in the playoffs. And like Baltimore last year, everybody thought Baltimore was going to be the favorite to make it to the Super Bowl, that they were going to face the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game because of how great they were in the regular season, and they got smoked. So that's why I tell people, it doesn't matter how bad or how well you perform in the regular season, because at the end of the day, the playoffs is a reset button. It doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. Once you get to the playoffs is a different animal. So you look at Buffalo right now, I think Buffalo has a better chance to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think the Buffalo Bills have the second best team in the AFC right now. So I think that they are really hot right now. They got a better chance to beat the Chiefs than the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I mean, listen, man, it looks like the Kansas City Chiefs, as of right now, they're going to steamroll their way through the playoffs, and they are going to make it to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, really impressive loss for really impressive win for the Buffalo Bills, excuse me. They won this game 26-15. They moved to 10-3 on the year. They got a date with the Miami Dolphins in the next couple of weeks. Really interested in seeing that game. But I have to give a round of applause to the Buffalo Bills, man. Once again, for the second straight year in a row, the Buffalo Bills defeat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the game that I chose the Steelers to win both years in a row. And also that messed up my best bets of the week, because I would have been 5-0 this week in terms of my best bets, but the Buffalo Bills had to pull off the win against Pittsburgh. So, Buffalo, if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you should be feeling really good about your team right now. I think Buffalo is going to end up going on the Tennessee Titans kind of run, like what Tennessee did last year in the playoffs, and they're going to surprise a lot of people. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship game. So, let's move on to something else. Let's talk about my guy, Jalen Hurts. Oh, can we move this out of the way? All right, there we go. Graphics guy, thank you. Graphics guy. So, Jalen Hurts led the Philadelphia Eagles to an upset victory against the New Orleans Saints, 24-21. And this was one of my best bets of the week. I had the Philadelphia Eagles beating the New Orleans Saints. And a lot of people really disagree with me. But I told everybody, I said, listen, I feel like a quarterback change was needed to get the Philadelphia Eagles season going back in the right direction. And when you look at how this Philadelphia Eagles team played under Jalen Hurts, I mean, Alshon Jeffrey, this dude finally scored a touchdown. When's the last time you heard Alshon Jeffrey's name? The last time I heard Alshon Jeffrey's name was, 2018? So Alshon Jeffrey made a brief appearance. We're probably not going to hear anything from him for the rest of the season. Jalen Reagor is finally looking like he deserved to be a first-round pick. Jalen Hurts, I mean, he has a lot of confidence. This Philadelphia Eagles team right now is playing really good under Jalen Hurts. And what I saw under Jalen Hurts this game against the New Orleans Saints, I saw a Philadelphia Eagles team that embraced Jalen Hurts. His leadership, how poised he was. When New Orleans started to come back into the game, Jalen Hurts never got rattled. Okay, Jalen Hurts was 17 of 30. 167 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and had 106 rushing yards on 18 carries, was averaging 5.9 yards per attempt. I think that was a big reason why the Philadelphia Eagles defeated the New Orleans Saints this game. Okay, because the Philadelphia Eagles, remind you, the Philadelphia Eagles haven't really been able to do that much on offense. The running game pretty much hasn't really been there, aside from a couple of good performances from Miles Sanders, but after that, teams stacked the box and they forced the Philadelphia Eagles to beat you through the air. So now you have to worry about stopping Jalen Hurts and his ability to run the football, and you have to stop Miles Sanders as well. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, they gave up no sacks. No sacks were given up by the Philadelphia Eagles this game. And remind you, there were a lot of Eagles fans saying that, oh, the offensive line's a problem, JT. Carson Wentz doesn't have enough weapons. Well, Jalen Hurts is winning with this same team that people said Carson Wentz had no weapons around. This was off the line that gave up no sacks due to Jalen Hurts' mobility. Jalen Hurts right now is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. And that may sound crazy. That may pee off a lot of you Philadelphia Eagles fans. But it's the honest truth. You see, Jalen Hurts plays within the offense. Carson Wentz didn't. Carson Wentz was so focused on trying to be Superman because he's had to be Superman in the past that he wasn't taking the easy throws. Jalen Hurts took what the defense gave him. He didn't try to force passes that didn't need to be forced. And he didn't try to be Superman. He played within the offense. And he didn't make any mistakes in terms of throwing the football. Now, he did have a fumble late in the game, which almost allowed New Orleans to come back. But the Philadelphia Eagles defense was able to hold, and Philadelphia Eagles were able to come away with the win. Now, for the NFC East, can Jalen Hurts lead the Philadelphia Eagles to the playoffs? That's the question that remains to be seen. Now, right now, Washington has a couple of games up on this division. They are 6-7. They won today. Well, they won Sunday against the 49ers. Now they're 6-7. The Giants are 5-8. They got smoked by Arizona. They gave up 8 sacks. We're about to get into them in the next segment. The Philadelphia Eagles are 4-8-1, so they still have a lot of ground to make up if they want to make it to the playoffs. And the Dallas Cowboys finally got a win against the Cincinnati Bengals today, so they're 4-9. So pretty much this whole entire division is right back to being wide open. It's anybody's game. And for Washington right now, we don't know the status of Alex Smith heading into next week's game because Alex Smith, if you guys didn't watch, he suffered an injury during the game, which Dwayne Haskins had to come in and it wasn't good. But even then, even when Alex Smith was in the game, Washington still didn't really have a lot of success on offense. This is one of the few games this season that Washington was just so unwatchable on offense that their defense literally scored all their points. Literally. And Washington has had some bad performances on offense, but this probably had to be the worst. But luckily enough, Washington has one of the best defenses in the NFL. You got Chase Young, who is going to be in the running. It's either going to be Jeremy Chin or Chase Young, who is going to end up taking home that Defensive Rookie of the Year award. Me personally, I think it's too close to call right now because Jeremy Chin has made a lot of plays. Chase Young has made a lot of good plays. I think they're going to give it to the player who ends up being on the best team. I think it's going to go to Chase Young. So when you look at this division, can Jalen Hurts lead the Philadelphia Eagles to the playoffs? He most definitely can. Will it happen? I don't really know. That's basically a coin flip, man. That's really hard to say, man, because there still is a lot of games left to be played. Washington does have a tough schedule to close out the season. But, I mean, anything can happen. But I still think that this division is still between Washington and the New York Giants. I'm not going to say that the Philadelphia Eagles are not going to make it to the playoffs. I'm not going to count out Philadelphia yet. But still, it still feels like Philadelphia's chances, even with Jalen Hurts at quarterback, is pretty slim to none in terms of them being able to make the playoffs. Okay, so before I move on to my next segment, if you haven't already, make sure that you guys like the video. Helps with the YouTube algorithm. Also, make sure that you follow me on my social media pages down below. My Instagram, my Twitter is both JTSports_. The link to those are down in the description down below. I do respond back to the majority of my DMs. I know I haven't really done a great job in the past responding back to DMs, but you guys gotta understand something. I'm not really all that big on social media, man. Like, I'm kind of, like Bruce Wayne. I don't really text a lot of people and things like that. I interact with you guys more than anything. So, I mean, I guess I do use social media because YouTube does kind of social media, but I mean, I'm not really that social of a person. You get what I'm saying? I'm kind of, laid back, kind of stay to myself. That's pretty much a reason why I can't keep a girlfriend, But yeah, make sure if you guys got any question that you guys want to ask me, or if you guys want to, give feedback about my channel and things like that, or if you want to talk crap, make sure that you guys go ahead and follow me on my social media platforms. My Instagram, my Twitter is both JTSports_. So, let's get into the next segment. Woo! Daniel Jones and the New York Giants got smoked by Arizona today. And boy, when I say they got smoked, they got smoked. And this was Daniel Jones' first game back ever since he suffered that injury a couple of weeks ago. Remind you that he didn't play in the New York Giants win against Seattle. And I have a feeling that the Giants were going to lose this game because they were coming off an emotional win against Seattle. And as much as I hate saying that, because I really think that's kind of a weak reasoning for why a team is going to lose, but I strongly felt like that. The Giants had their biggest win, and pretty much not just this season, but in the last 2 years. So you beat Seattle, and now how are you going to react now that you have to play another good team in Arizona? Well, they got smoked 26-7. And the question is Daniel Jones holding back the New York Giants offense? Now, there were a lot of people who wanted to put the blame on Daniel Jones. They wanted to put the blame on Jason Garrett. They wanted to put the blame on Joe Judge. Everybody wanted to play the blame game for the New York Giants. But here's the thing. Daniel Jones, remind you, didn't play last week. So he was still trying to get into the rhythm and the flow of things, okay? But listen, I don't really think that Jason Garrett is the problem. A lot of Giants fans out there on Twitter and Instagram were saying, you got to fire Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett is the reason why this offense isn't good. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So let me tell you guys something. You guys do realize that COVID has changed the world forever. We are never going to go back to the way things were before COVID. Understand that, okay? Things have changed. You guys remember that interrogation scene from The Dark Knight when Batman was interrogating the Joker? And what did the Joker say? The Joker said, the mob wants you gone, but, you've changed things. COVID-19 has changed things, not just for how we live our day-to-day lives, but for the NFL as well. And we're pretty much going to be seeing the same protocols and the same issues in the offseason. So it doesn't make any sense to fire Jason Garrett, bring in, once again, another new offensive coordinator, and have this whole entire offense learn a new system. Okay, that just isn't smart. So if you're Joe Judge, you have to bring back Jason Garrett for another season. Because how's your young quarterback supposed to develop with, once again, another offensive coordinator? I don't know if you guys saw what happened to Marcus Mariota in Tennessee, but Marcus Mariota had a different offensive coordinator almost every single season. That is not how you develop a young quarterback. When you have to replace the offensive coordinator every single offseason, it holds back his development because, once again, he doesn't get a chance to, get comfortable in the system because he's learning a new offense. So for the Giants, I don't really think that Jason Garrett's a problem. But if you do want to point a finger, let's point a finger to the offensive line that a lot of Giants fans have been trying to say. When I've been telling a lot of Giants fans, I've been trying to tell you that this offensive line is not as good as you think it is. Yes, your offensive line has played good over the last couple of weeks, but at the end of the day, you still have a lot of holes that you need to patch in the offseason in the NFL draft. Like, one of my YouTube buddies did a mock draft. He had the New York Giants taking an offensive lineman, and New York Giants fans went crazy on him. They said, why the heck do you have us taking the offensive line or offensive linemen when the offensive line has played good the last 5 weeks? Well, you allowed 8 sacks against Arizona. So I think that tells you that this offensive line still has a lot of holes that needs to be addressed. And trust me, you do not want to go into next season with this offensive line still not improved. Okay? So for the New York Giants, is your offensive line playing good enough to win this division? Yes, it is. But your offensive line next year needs to be improved. Listen, you should never be okay with mediocrity. For the New York Giants, and if you're a New York Giants fan and you feel like this offensive line doesn't need any more additional improvements, then you're okay with mediocrity. Okay? And you're going to see what mediocrity gets you. Did you not see what happened to Joe Burrow? Mediocrity gets your quarterback on IR. You saw what happened to Andrew Luck? So stop trying to be cheap. Stop trying to be conservative with the offensive line. Listen, your offensive line is good enough to win this division, but it's not going to be good enough to win a lot of games next year if you don't address it in the offseason. Why would you upset mediocrity? Okay? Never be okay with accepting mediocrity. So improve the offensive line in the offseason, but as of right now, this offensive line allowed 8 sacks against Arizona, and I think that's to blame because the offensive line didn't really do a lot in the run department. And on top of that, you couldn't run the football anyway because you were down big by Arizona. So if you ask me, how is Daniel Jones supposed to succeed with this tail behind offensive line? And even if you do want to bench Daniel Jones to put in Colt McCoy, what the hell is he going to do behind this offensive line? It's not going to be any better because he doesn't even have the kind of athleticism that Daniel Jones has. And people act like Colt McCoy is just so much better than Daniel Jones. Let me tell you guys something. Daniel Jones may not be as good of a quarterback as a lot of people say. You know, Daniel Jones still might not even be a good quarterback at all. Daniel Jones may get replaced by the New York Giants in the offseason. But at the end of the day, Daniel Jones gives the New York Giants the best chance to win games and the best chance to win this division. Daniel Jones is better than Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy has been a career backup for a reason. Daniel Jones gives the Giants the best chance because with how bad this offensive line has played, you need Daniel Jones' mobility. You need Daniel Jones' ability to run with the football. That's why he's better than Colt McCoy. So you Giants fans can make all the reasoning for why you should bench Daniel Jones, but at the end of the day, if you can't win up front, you're not going to win a lot of football games. I tell people this every single week. And I know it's starting to sound cliche by now, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many talented wide receivers you have. Doesn't matter how good of a running back you have. At the end of the day, the game is won and lost in the trenches and the line of scrimmage. If you can't win up front, you're not going to win football games. I don't care how good of a wide receiver group you have. I was talking to Carolina Panthers fans a couple of days ago, and it was Panthers fans talking about how this team should be much better with the offense they have, with the wide receivers they have, and things like that. And I said, listen, you guys have a great wide receiving core, but at the end of the day, the game is won and lost in the trenches. If you can't win up front, you're not going to win in the NFL, point blank, period. Look at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has the best wide receiver group in the NFL, and look what their record is. You want to know why? Because their offensive line isn't great. The teams that make it the furthest in the playoffs are the teams that have the best offensive lines, the teams who are great up front. You guys do realize that, right? It's not one team that has been to a Super Bowl that has had a bad offensive line or has had a bad defensive line. So for a lot of you Giants fans, you guys can make, put the blame on Daniel Jones and Jason Garrett all you want to, but at the end of the day, your offensive line gave up 8 sacks. And those 8 sacks led to 3 fumbles. So for the New York Giants, I don't think Daniel Jones is holding back this offense. I think this offense is what it is. It's an offense that you're going to struggle to put up points, just like Washington is going to struggle to put up points. Okay? You want to know what's ironic? The 2 best teams in this division as of right now have terrible offenses but great defenses. And Dallas, who talent-wise has the best offense in this division, doesn't have a defense. And the Philadelphia Eagles are pretty much the most balanced team in this division. So that's crazy. That's just how weird this NFC East division is. Your 2 best teams have great defenses, but they can't score points to save their lives. You have to pray to God that they even managed to put 20 points on the board. Okay? And then the 2 teams at the bottom of this division, the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys have an offense, but they can't stop nobody on defense. In Philadelphia, their offense is okay, and their defense is pretty good, but we don't really know. So, I don't believe that Daniel Jones is holding back the New York Giants offense, and I don't think that Daniel Jones should be replaced in the offseason, and I don't believe that Jason Garrett should be fired in the offseason either, because once again, you're going to be bringing in a new quarterback who's going to have to learn a new system. Listen, man, at the end of the day, you have to be able to win up front. And I'm not slandering Washington. I'm not doing that to take any, shots at Washington, anything like that. I'm just being honest. Your offense stinks. You can barely score 20 points. Your defense scored all of your points today. That's not me taking a shot at Washington. That's just me being honest. And you as Washington fans know it too. Your offense isn't good. So, let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, ladies and gentlemen, are still Super Bowl contenders. And I know it may not seem like a popular pick to say that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to make it to the Super Bowl, because ever since the Buccaneers got blasted by the New Orleans Saints and lost to Kansas City a couple of weeks ago, people have hopped off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bandwagon. But I still have confidence that the Buccaneers could make it to the Super Bowl still. Listen, This team got a really good win against Minnesota. A Minnesota team that right now is really hot right now. And they beat them 26-14. They are now 8-5 on the year. Tom Brady had a pretty good game. He was 15-23 for 196 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. They had the running game going. But the defense was really good for Tampa Bay in this game. Now, although Dalvin Cook did rush for over 100 yards, he did have a pretty good game. The Minnesota Vikings really couldn't get anything going on offense. At one point, the Buccaneers were up 17-6 heading into halftime, and in the third quarter, they had a 23-14 lead. And this was a game that the offense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't really have to do that much because their defense was just so downright dominant. And remember, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do have one of the best rosters in the NFL. From a roster standpoint, this may be one of the most complete teams in the NFL. Now, I know their offensive line isn't great, but their offensive line is average, okay? I think their offensive line, if they can get the ball out fast to these wide receivers, let these wide receivers work in space, and get the run game going and somewhat be able to remain balanced in the playoffs, I do think that they could potentially make it to the Super Bowl. And remember, if Tampa Bay can run the football the way they did against Minnesota, or they can run the football the way they did against Green Bay, this is a team that could make a lot of noise in the playoffs and could be in the Super Bowl come on February. Okay, so the thing for Tampa is that Tampa Bay puts themselves in the hole when they can't run the football, when they just choose to abandon the run game and they just want to go pass heavy. Tom Brady, even though he's still really solid, he's still a top 12 quarterback despite his age, he's not at the point in his career when he can win you games by throwing the football 50 times a game. That simply isn't going to happen with Tom Brady's age. But if you're able to have a balanced rushing attack and you're able to do what you did against Minnesota, you have a very strong shot of not only winning in the playoffs, but making it to the Super Bowl. So the thing with the Buccaneers is that you have to be able to maintain balance on offense. The run game has to be effective because then those pass rushers can pin their ears back and they don't even have to worry about the run. They can just go after the quarterback. Look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers have struggled to run the football for like the last, month and a half? And look what's happening to their offense. So running the football, you don't have to be the best running football team in the NFL or anything like that, but you have to be balanced. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are a pass-heavy team, but they can run the football if they have to. That's the difference between Kansas City and majority of teams in the NFL. They don't have that balance. It's too many one-dimensional teams, and when you enter the playoffs, you can't be one-dimensional. You have to be able to have some kind of success running the football. And if Tampa Bay is able to have this run game going in the playoffs, and they're able to not only be balanced running the football, but throwing the football as well, this is a dangerous team. I'm not sleeping on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have way too much talent just to, just forget about them not having a chance to make it to the Super Bowl. Because I tell people this all the time. I just said it like 20 minutes ago. It doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. All that matters is that you make it to the playoffs. Because once you make it to the playoffs, anything can happen. As long as you catch fire at the right time, that's what matters. And for Tampa Bay, this was a very big win. They needed this win. They got a really big win against the Minnesota Vikings, a team that right now is still fighting for the playoffs and still has a shot to make it to the playoffs right now. I'm really impressed with Tampa. And I love Tampa Bay's defense. I love Jamal Dean. I love Carlton Davis. I love Antoine Winfield. I love these linebackers. I love this front seven. I really love Tampa Bay. And I'm not saying that Tampa Bay is going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not picking Tampa Bay to win the Super Bowl. I'm just saying, I would not be surprised if we saw Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl come February, because this is a very good team. They're loaded at wide receiver. As long as they're able to maintain some kind of balance on the offensive side of the football, I think this is a team that can make a lot of noise in the playoffs. And like I said earlier, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, JT, they got blown out by the Saints. I mean, their most impressive win this season came against the Green Bay Packers, and I understand that. You get what I'm saying? Like, I understand that people want to say that the Buccaneers didn't do good in the regular season and things like that, but like I've been telling people, same thing I've been telling people about the Pittsburgh Steelers. It doesn't matter what these two teams do in the playoff, what they do in the regular season. All that matters is that they make it to the playoffs, because once you get to the playoffs, it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. The season, basically, you hit the reset button. The playoffs is a whole entirely different animal. Just because you're good in the regular season doesn't mean you're going to be good in the playoffs. Just because, you have a bad month of December to close out the regular season doesn't mean you're going to do bad in the playoffs. There has been several teams that have ended the month of December on losing streaks that have went on to win Super Bowl. Several teams throughout NFL history have done that. So it's all about making adjustments and being able to maintain some balance on offense. And that's what Tampa Bay can do. And Tampa Bay's defense, remind you that this is a top 10 defensive unit. And a lot of people aren't talking about that. A lot of people think they go back to that Saints game, they go back to that Chiefs loss. But if you can get over those, this has been one of the best defenses in the NFL. And like I've been telling people before the season even began, I told people that the Buccaneers were going to have a top 10 defense. And as long as the Buccaneers are not turning the football over, this defense is going to be able to keep them in games more times than not. It's all about, can they maintain that balance on offense? So listen, a lot of you guys may be off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl bandwagon, but I'm not. I would not be surprised if the Buccaneers end up making it to the Super Bowl if they win it all. I would not be surprised. So my last segment of the day, before I end up going to bed, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins. Now, a Dolphins fan on Twitter tonight asked me, he said, "Hey JT, with this loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, the Dolphins dropped to 8-5. Do you still think that the Miami Dolphins have a chance to make it to the playoffs, even though that the Ravens are right on our heels and that the Raiders, you still can't count them out?" I do still feel like the Miami Dolphins will make it to the playoffs. Now, it may be difficult, okay? Because, listen, they still have to play the Patriots, you got to play the Raiders, and you got to play the Bills to close out your season. And those three games are going to be really tough for Miami. Okay, now I understand that the Patriots have not been good this year. Well, I won't say they haven't been good, but, the Patriots are still in the wild card mix as well. Okay, the Patriots, they're still trying to make it to the playoffs. Even though they got blasted by the Rams this past Thursday night, they still have an outside shot of making it to the playoffs. So the Patriots aren't giving up on the season just yet. And remind you that Bill Belichick is, a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback's worst nightmare. You guys saw what he did to Justin Herbert. Okay, the game was not even close. He destroyed the Chargers. He destroyed Justin Herbert in that Chargers offense. Remind you that Justin Herbert was averaging nearly 3 touchdowns per game before he played New England. So for the Miami Dolphins, that game is going to be really difficult. The Las Vegas Raiders, I believe that the Dolphins are going to win that game. The Las Vegas Raiders right now, they're in panic mode. They're kind of in the same situation that the Pittsburgh Steelers are. As a matter of fact, they're in a way more worse situation than what the Steelers are. They're in complete desperation mode. Remind you that if you didn't know already, the Raiders a couple of hours ago fired their defensive coordinator. Anytime that you're firing your defensive coordinator or you're firing anybody on your staff at this time of the year, after coming off a couple of losses and a close win against the New York Jets, you're in desperation mode. And John Gruden knows it, and everybody on that Raiders team knows it, that they cannot afford to lose any more games. When you fire a coach in December, that shows desperation. Okay? And remind you that this has been the defensive coordinator for the Raiders for pretty much the whole entire season, and you choose to fire him with 3 games left on the schedule? That's desperation mode. Okay? So I think that the Miami Dolphins will beat the Las Vegas Raiders. Then you have to play the Buffalo Bills. And right now, the Buffalo Bills are a team that nobody should want to play right now. The Buffalo Bills are the hottest team in the NFL right now. So Miami, you have a tough game against New England. You have a game against Las Vegas that could be tough, but you should still be able to win. And you have to play the Buffalo Bills. So for the Dolphins, if they go 9-7, I don't know if they make it to the playoffs. Because the Ravens or somebody's going to creep in. And I don't think the Ravens are going to be 9-7. I think the Ravens are going to win 10 games. So if you're Miami, You have to win two out of your last 3 games to make it into the playoffs, in my opinion. I do think that the Dolphins are more than capable of doing that. Okay? I do think that they can beat New England because remember, even though that Bill Belichick is really good against rookie quarterbacks, he kind of struggles against his former assistants. And Brian Flores knows the Patriots and knows the Patriots system and knows Bill Belichick better than pretty much anybody else. So we've seen Bill Belichick struggle against his former assistants in the past. So Brian Flores, I think that he could come up with a good game plan for Miami to be able to get the win over New England. But we don't know that. And Buffalo, although they are one of the hottest teams, or not the hottest team in the NFL right now, they can still be beat too. No team in the NFL can't be beat. Anything can happen. But for the Miami Dolphins to make it to the playoffs, they got to win at least 2 out of their last 3 games. Now, when you look at this game against Kansas City, it looked like the Miami Dolphins are going to pull off the upset. But after the first quarter, I guess Kansas City woke up and they just went absolutely ballistic. Because the score ended up being 30-10 at the end of the third quarter. Now, Miami's defense gave Kansas City a lot of problems in the first quarter. Patrick Mahomes had an interception. He had a 30-yard loss, trying to do too much with the football instead of just throwing it away. And this Dolphins defense was causing a lot of chaos for Kansas City's offense. But eventually, Kansas City snapped out of it, and they hung 30 on the Miami Dolphins. And I think that tells you more about Kansas City than it does Miami, because Miami did come back into this game. And I don't want nobody saying, oh, it was garbage time points, JT. Listen, Miami still had a chance to win this game 33-27. The fact that they came back was really impressive. And remind you that they put 17 points on the board in the fourth quarter. So Miami could have very well won that game. But I think that loss doesn't really show that much about Miami, because listen, we knew that Miami was going to lose to Kansas City. We knew that Miami's chances of beating Kansas City were pretty much slim to none. Okay? But I think that loss showed us how good Kansas City is, because Miami is no slouch. This is a really good football team. But the fact that Patrick Mahomes played pretty much his worst game of the season and Kansas City still won this game shows you a lot about how good Kansas City is. Because remind you, the Pittsburgh Steelers been playing awful and they barely been winning games. And even despite playing bad, they're barely winning games. They're barely making it by. You see, they're on a 2-game lose streak right now. So I think that this loss shows you more about how good Kansas City is than it does about Miami. Because I'm pretty sure no Miami Dolphins fans, or not a lot of Miami Dolphins fans out there who are logical. And I'm not talking about your overly optimistic fans, because there are like 3 types of fans. Okay, fan bases are comprised of 3 people. You have your overly optimistic fans, who are your fans who, you know, every time I do my preseason predictions, even though you know that the Cincinnati Bengals are not going to be good, you think that the Bengals are going to make it to the playoffs. Those are your overly optimistic fans. The fans that think that their team is going to win every single game, every single week, even though they're not that good. So you have your overly optimistic fan. Then you have your neutral fan, which is pretty much about 70 to 80% of you guys out there who are watching this right now. Pretty much a lot of you guys are realists. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys understood that the Miami Dolphins' chances of beating Kansas City weren't all that high. Okay? Then you have your overly pessimistic fans, which are the fans out there that thinks that the team sucks. Nothing that the team does will ever satisfy them. They're never going to be happy. So I think for the Miami Dolphins, if you are a Miami Dolphins fan, you know, you wasn't coming into this game seeing, you know, expecting the Miami Dolphins to beat Kansas City. Even though I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys wanting to see that, I think a lot of you Miami Dolphins fans wanting to see if Miami could compete with Kansas City. And I mean, they did in the first quarter, but after that, Kansas City pretty much, you know, blew the doors off. And I think that Kansas City allowed Miami to come back because they were trying to chew time off the clock and they were trying to get up on out of there, trying to avoid any injuries and things like that. But Miami did come back and did somewhat make this a game. So, I mean, listen, the Dolphins, as of right now, heading into next week, have the 7th seed in the NFL. So, they're still going to be going against the Ravens, the Raiders. You still have New England, who isn't out of there completely yet. So, I mean, for the Dolphins, I still like the Dolphins' chances of making it to the playoffs. Now, will it happen? You know, who knows? But if I was a betting man, I would still bet on the Miami Dolphins to make it to the playoffs. I still think that the Miami Dolphins can win at least these next 2 games out of their last 3 remaining that they have on their schedule. I believe in the Miami Dolphins. I like Tua. I like what Brian Flores has done with this Dolphins team. This Dolphins team has had a complete turnaround. One of the fastest turnarounds I've seen in a very long time. I like Miami. I think Miami's defense is going to be able to win a couple of games for them. And Miami could be a pretty tough team in the playoffs as well because of how good this secondary is and how good this defense is as a whole. The Miami Dolphins don't have any holes on their defense at all. Linebacker is good. They're good up front on the defensive line. They can get after you. And the secondary is pretty good as well. And I told people before the season began, just like I said Tampa Bay was going to have a top 10 defense, I said that the Miami Dolphins were going to have a top 10 defense before the season began. So, listen, I think that the Miami Dolphins are still going to be able to make it to the playoffs. I know that they're going to beat the Raiders. I'm pretty confident about that. And I do think they can either beat the Patriots or they can beat the Bills. So, this is it for this episode of JT Sports Live. I just took a shower like a couple of hours ago. Now I got to take another one because I'm all sweaty and things like that. But if you are new and you haven't subscribed to the channel already, make sure that you subscribe. I upload NFL videos and college football videos daily. I'm going to be live streaming again Tuesday night. Tomorrow, or once I wake up, I'm going to be uploading my college football predictions. I'm going to be uploading my predictions for the SEC championship game, the Big Ten championship game, and the Big 12 championship game, and the ACC championship game. I'm not going to do the Pac-12 because I haven't really watched all that much of the Pac-12. Wasn't really a reason to. So make sure that you guys follow me on social media. My Twitter and my Instagram is both JT Sports_. The link to those are down in the description down below. Take care. Good.